Hey guys, back at you with the unveiling of my team associated SC10b buggy with several upgrades on it. I've had a chance to run it and I can say that I'm very, very happy. This buggy takes me back to the old days when I raced the old gold pan RC10 buggy. Not because it handles anything like it, because it handles much better than something that's 20 years old, but just the nostalgia behind having a team associated buggy just brings back those fond memories. Um, I mentioned before in the previous video that I was conflicted about which tires to use. I decided to go with the J Concepts Scorpions, and as I mentioned, I had these tires on hand for about a year. They are really good tires. They're super soft, very sticky. I've got a great tread pattern for playing around, and the wheels don't look bad either. Quick note to mention though, if you're planning on using these on your SC10 buggy, I had to use a little washer because for some reason I guess the hex in the wheel is a little thinner than what the stock wheel is, and the threads only go down so far, so when I tightened the nut it didn't completely tighten down the wheel until I used a washer. So that was only on the rear. The front didn't require it. Just a little note. That's a little quick easy fix though. The Taser 3300 kV brushless motor that I purchased from Dollar Hobbies. It was pulled from a Triple X SCB, is very impressive in this car. I mentioned I had a SC10 RS with the Reedy 3300 before. This blows it away. This is a much better motor. It stays completely cool. I'm running a 21 tooth pinion and using 2S. This thing pulls wheelies. It's I'm guessing probably somewhere between 35 and 40 miles per hour right now. And the ESCN motor that I have in this from Dynamite is capable of 3S, and I don't need 3S. I'm happy with 2S. That lets you know how well the motor and ESC performs. The team associated big bore shocks, great. They're super smooth. I mean, they are just plush. Now if those springs look a little funky to you, that's because they are actually from a Power Stroke Proline shock kit. Just because the stock shock springs that come with the big bore shocks are a little bit soft, and the Proline springs have the correct firmness for what I'm looking for. I'm not really even sure what rate these are, so sorry about that guys, but they are great. The Rpma Arms, I mentioned those before. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this guy didn't install those correctly, but I did. The stock SC10 buggy has gull wing suspension. That it has a boomerang shape to it, and RPM's answer to those is to give you a straight arm for strength and a drop down for the shocks. I didn't know how I felt about these drop downs because they look like they're gonna snag on things, but I've had no problems. Like I said, did run the buggy, and in the yard on grass, off-road terrain, everything, they don't drag anything. They're in fact, when you compress the suspension, as you can see, they're still off the ground. They don't touch the ground. So, and I guess over the terrains I ran, I imagine if you're on a very muddy off-road course or something like that, I guess something could catch on this. I don't know, but I'm happy. If I have any problems with them catching, I'll just switch back to the stock A-arms. Titanium turnbuckles turned out great. I didn't mention in the last video because they hadn't come in yet, but I actually purchased some aluminum front rear hubs and knuckles along with aluminum shock towers. All this aluminum is from Integy, and I know people will probably want to bash me for using Integy products, but I avoided them for years myself, but when I had my I purchased my first Integy product was the rear hubs on uh, my HPI Savage, and Integy was the only brand that had a hub that would eliminate the need for a rear turnbuckle, and I liked that idea, and I put them on my HPI Savage, and I have abused that thing to beyond measure with no problems. So um, sometimes hearsay is not always accurate. Until I break an Integy part, I don't have a problem with Integy. People can say what they want, but until I break an Integy part, I'm not going to bash them. So for something like this, running 2S LiPo, and it's not a very heavy buggy even with the aluminum, I don't think I'm going to have problems with these hub shock towers at all. Underneath, as you can see, the rear A-arms are great. That's the hot racing lower plate. It actually acts as a rear bulkhead. Um, that's to me makes sense to keep the hinge pins and all intact without any breakages. That's an RPM rear motor cover, just to match the blue theme. On the front end, hard to see, but I have an STRC front bulkhead I mentioned on the previous video. An FT front hinge pin brace is right there. I'm going to pause the video and pull the body off. I installed some light buckets. They come from an Axial light bucket kit. What I did was I used the clamping, my finger in the shot there. These are clamps that actually come from an Axial kit, and then I just take a screw straight down through the clamp, which pinches down on that front bumper brace and screws right down into the light bucket. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, it worked out quite well, and it actually looks pretty sweet. I have not wired up the LEDs. I'm actually out of solder and shrink tubing right now, so I've got the LEDs on hand, but I need to wire everything up, make a harness. So that's not done yet. But also in the back, did the same thing. Used the clamps, clamp down the rear bumper bracket, and use the smaller light buckets, and it actually looks pretty factory. Anyway, okay. On the inside, I've got a hot racing upper chassis brace, which is actually kind of necessary for an SC10 type vehicle. Either that or the RPM chassis brace that it's a stiffener they offer. But this actually creates strength, since that the chassis weak spot is right there. So all this bolts together with the shock tower and on the front bulkhead and creates well, for one thing, it actually puts a little weight on the front end, which is good for a two-wheel drive buggy, and secondly, adds a lot of strength up there for impacts. That's the Integy front shock tower that I mentioned. It's again, say what you want about Integy, but it's a work of art. It looks beautiful. There's the rear shock tower that I mentioned from Integy. Sorry guys. Got the carbon fiber battery strap to hold everything down. FT lockouts for it. Savox 1258 servo. Super quick. Nice servo. I got the FT aluminum steering rack in there. And there's the Dynamite Taser ESC that I mentioned before. There's a little piece of grass right there. Proof I run it. Anyway, all in all, I'm really pleased with how this buggy turned out. It's just super agile, super fast. Even on 2S, that's a 6,000 milliamp HRB battery that I have. I think it's got a 60C rating. I think so, but it's super powerful. Got a lot of punch, and even has more punch than I've got another battery with an 80C burst rating, and it doesn't even compare to this battery. Anyway, I'm real pleased with how everything turned out. It handles great. The turning radius on this buggy is sick. I mean, it turns on a dime. Those tires grip great. The suspension's plush. And like I said, all in all, I'm just real happy with the way this buggy handles. A lot of fun to play with. I would recommend it for a beginner, because where you point it, it goes, and it's planted, and it's easy to drive. Really like this two-wheel drive buggy. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Of course, give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like it. And until next time, have a good day.